that is why right now is so hard. It's like we're all stuck at mile 13 of the Ironman marathon, and we have no idea when we're going to see our next group of family and friends, and we have no idea when we're going to get to the finish line.
Good morning, my friend. How fired up are you?
Oof, how fired up. I'm a medium burn, I think, for today. A solid medium burn. I'm not too on fire like I was, I think, maybe last Thursday. But hey, we appreciate you tuning in. Welcome aboard. Crushing Iron Podcast. I believe we're, 394 today?
Oh, man, let me look.
I'm off. I think I'm off today.
I think you're 393 is what I got.
393. 393 it is. Today is July 23rd, 2020, and welcome aboard. We appreciate you tuning in as always. If it's your first time listening, thanks for giving us your time. We know there are a lot of triathlon podcasts out there, but just to be upfront, we are not just that. We cover both. We cover triathlon, we cover life, we cover how they intersect, how they complement each other, how they sometimes can take away if we lose our perspective and kind of get lost in the sport and forget the balance that we're trying to create in terms of being happy and healthy and using triathlon to complement our life and not necessarily take away from it. Mike and I, as both coaches and athletes, just share our experiences and hopefully a very digestible way that you can take and apply to your own life. We cover a swim, bike, and run. We'll go deep dive. We have a How to Not Suck series, which I think people love. We've always got
I
great
love
people.
it.
Yeah, we have a lot of people love it for whatever reason. But hey, we'll take it. We'll occasionally have on a guest. We'll do race recaps, race previews, and sometimes we'll often pop into our closed Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group, if you want to hop in there, and we'll let our community drive the train and kind of get up just an overall pulse of what's going on with triathletes all over the world, and we'll let them kind of drive the train in terms of putting in questions, and you and I'll answer them as quickly as we can. Sometimes we won't even cover them all. We'll get halfway done, but we just like to cover all topics. We know that this sport is important to all of us in so many ways, and I think being reminded of that and how and the why it is important right now with races getting canceled and the only thing that we're able to do and able to control is ourselves and our own training. And we don't have a lot of us have been stripped of the extra motivation that is a race on the calendar. The extra motivation that is picturing crossing that finish line. The extra motivation that is, accomplishing a goal you never thought you could accomplish because you have this race and you have this event on the calendar. We've been stripped from that the last few weeks and last few months, and races continue to get canceled. And I want to be very, very clear here. When I say a lot of races are getting canceled, on the flip side as well, a lot of races are still happening. I did our in our closed active athlete group. Every week I do like the C26 weekly racing roster, and I post all the athletes and what they're doing. And I did that yesterday to post for tomorrow and put on the calendar, kind of like auto post. And I think we have like 15 or 16 athletes racing, like doing Olympics and sprints and all. It's like people are racing. Racing isn't done for 2020. Racing isn't finished. Some of the larger mass participation event races, Ironman branded events specifically, which is what a lot of our focus is on sometimes as well, for good or bad. But then there are a lot of races still happening. The trail races are happening, cycling events are happening, small run races are happening, sprints, Olympics, distance events are happening. Even some 70.3s are happening that are capped at a very small participant threshold. And you've got swim races that are happening, Xterra events that are happening. Like, there are opportunities to race. And I think what's also challenging us right now is that we're having to kind of dive back into finding out the reason why we're doing the sport or why it means so much to us. And a lot of athletes that are being incredibly successful right now, they've either reminded themselves why they love the process of just training, or they've had to kind of go back and kind of rebalance or purge out of their, triathlon mindset, sometimes the thoughts that can be toxic to our best performance or in balancing, the ins and outs of training and keeping everyone in our life happy and doing the best that we can. And when I say balance, like I do think that is somewhat of a myth. I had this conversation with an athlete earlier this week about, she was saying that she thought she just wasn't balancing life very well right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a total myth in terms of like perfectly balancing life, because I think that you have to kind of you kind of have to keep your head on a swivel, especially right now, and be flexible. And you have to prioritize in life what's most important. And sometimes, and I think that's okay for you to go through ebbs and flows in life of what's so important and what's not important. I think you can have very few things on your plate at one time in order to be very, very successful, like maybe 2 to 3 things, instead of kind of having, try to shove very small bites of 10 or 12 to 15 things on your plate and try to do them equally okay. But if you're gonna be really good or really great at things, you can only address a few small things. But balance is way overrated, and not overrated. I think it's one of those things where you have like a perfectionist, mindset, to where you are trying to do everything perfectly, yet you don't feel like you're doing anything well, so it's actually a negative. There is no such thing as perfection. It's just one of those degrading things we do to ourselves that convinces ourselves that we're not good enough, that we always need to do better. And when it comes to balance, there is no such thing. There are times in lives where, I know for me, like there are certain times in my life where, certain periods of certain aspects of my life have been thrown to the forefront, and they have been the absolute ultimate focus of what I need to do each day, and everything else has to take a back seat. Is that balanced? Absolutely not. But I think our lives require that we be flexible and understanding and being okay with the fact that balance is not something that causes harmony and peace. Addressing things that need to be addressed and putting all of your energy into those things to get them accomplished and maybe get them finished and done and set aside, that's what brings your life harmony. Is not having 50 things halfway done, but you've got balance. I'm spending 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 10 minutes here. My life is totally balanced. I've equally allocated my zen and my energy to all things in life. And yet you look back on the last month or two and you're like, what the hell have I even accomplished? But I'm balanced, baby. I'm balanced. Or you could address things in a tactical way, or even a to-do list type of way, and get things done and move on and have them accomplished and finished, whether it's a mindset, whether it's training, whether it's life, whether it's your relationships, and just focus and dial it in. And it's okay to put things to the side and focus on one thing. And that's okay, because I think life right now demands it. It could be, what your kids are going through. It could be work. It could be training, whatever it is. Just be focused on one thing and do it, and limit the distractions while you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And welcome aboard.
Yeah.
I kind of did a cannonball today.
Right
We
out of the
usually,
gate, man.
I know, right out of the gate, we usually like to wade in the water. We could dip our toe in. We talk a little bit, football, a little bit of baseball, basketball, whatever, team sports. We bore everybody to death, and then bring it home on a negative split, and then kind of wade our way into the shallow end, and then maybe eventually do some, fun synchronized swimming in the deep end. But yeah, baby, I'm just jumping cannonball style today.
Maybe I'll edit that and put it at the end.
There you go. Yeah,
Just back.
that would be awesome.
Yeah, the thing about balance to me is it's sort of like a target, and in the sense of like you see it out there and you kind of keep an eye and like because you can get way off to one side and I think that like for me it's a I, it's about good habits, right? So you get up and you do if you have like something you need to get done, it's kind of like just always doing some of it and keeping with it and staying on top of it instead of letting it get way out of control. Because then you got to just, like you got the night before and you got the big presentation, you haven't done anything on it and you just do it all. And that to me like starts throwing you out of balance because then you don't sleep and then the next day is all screwed up and you're like, I need to sleep for 3 days, so then it turns into that. But I you were talking about why the love for the sport and how this kind of situation that everybody's going through is kind of rekindling or at least showing us a little bit harder why we might want to love this sport more as we go forward. And I was out riding because I'm in Chattanooga now. We're both in Chattanooga, and I finally got my bike out the other day, and I was riding up and down the river, the Greenway, the bike path. What do you call it, Greenway or Pike Path or whatever? It's the same thing,
I think
I
they
guess.
call it the River Walk.
River Walk, and which happens to be the Ironman run course. And I was riding along it, man, and looking out over that river and looking at the bridges and the skyline coming into town and stuff. And boy, did I miss that race, man. It's just like to think that it's not going to be here, man. It really made me want to get in there and swim. I mean, I kept riding over the bridge and just back and forth and doing stuff and there's it really has kind of created a new fire in me in a way. Um, coming into this year, I was a little bit unsure about what I was going to do and how I was going to tackle this season, and I was meandering around, but now I feel like it's gotten a lot clearer because it's like, wow, you can take that stuff for granted, and I feel like I've really developed sort of a newfound love for it, which is interesting because I've been doing racing for like 8 straight years and Ironman for 7, and now it's like, wow, I really do miss it, man. So, but I'm turning that into that, and I think that has something to do with this balance we're talking about because it is a good opportunity to work on, quote unquote, your physical balance and your mental balance too with regard to racing. And I know you're just saying that there's no such thing as it, but I do think that it's a good time that we don't have to do any cramming for races and things of that nature. So it might be an opportunity just to, keep chipping away sort of thing. And I think that's kind of what you're saying in a way too, is like, don't put things off, just keep at it.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a great point. I mean, I think in what I was trying to say is that when it comes to our life, and then it comes to training, we athletes can really be hard on themselves, and they'll leave comment, especially right now, when life is throwing curveball after curveball after curveball. You're just literally unprepared for what's next. Not only unprepared, is that there is no precedent in terms of what's going to happen. You can't fall back on, well, back 2 years ago when this exact thing happened, they did open back schools. I mean, so the kids are probably going to go. Right now, you just don't know. Or when am I going to go back to work and quit working remotely? I don't know. You're having to live in the present, but at the same time, you have to be really aware of what might happen in the next few months, and it might be totally different. So there's this level of comfort we're all trying to trying to get used to, and but at the same time knowing that we can't really truly get settled, right? Because things are more than likely going to change in the next 2, 3, 4 months, and it'll be totally different. You're going to have, you've got parents who are, they're keeping their kids at home, and they're doing online learning, and they're also working from home, and they're trying to find comfort to get in a routine with that, and live that balanced role or balanced life with training and working on a new schedule, while at the same time thinking in the back of their mind, well, I kind of still need to keep on cue and kind of on top of my mind that in the next 3 months, my kids might be going back to school. My schedule will drastically change, and I'll be going back to commuting to work. Totally different life, right? So when I think of balance, and I think of the myth that is that we also tend to be really hard on ourselves when, like I'll read this in Training Peaks with athletes, and they'll say, I can't find the right balance right now, because they might miss a few workouts, and the reason for that is because I think balance is probably the wrong word, that I'm trying to get across from
I'll
here.
beep it out.
Yeah, is that and just change it with priorities.
Okay.
And I think that is the essence of what I'm trying to get across, is that we all have our priorities change each day, and they should. And I think athletes right now are finding that their priorities are shifting more than they've ever shifted. They are being forced to look at what are the biggest priorities in their lives and what are not, because of just the state of the world that we're living in at the moment. And athletes will beat themselves up and say, I can't believe I didn't make this time for this today. I know I should have gotten it in, but work and life is crazy. My kids really needed me at home today. My job was doing this. I had to do this, and I couldn't find the right balance. Well, the truth of the matter is that hopefully, and for the most part, most athletes are putting the right things at the top of their priority list, which is themselves and their own health, their profession, and their family. And if you're putting those things first, and you're missing a training session, then give yourself a pat on the back, because what we do in life matters more than what we do in sport. Now, can those things combine? Absolutely. Can they complement each other? Absolutely. And the next day that you're beating yourself one day for not having your priorities in order, and you're missing a training session, and now you're some unmotivated, undedicated, non-committal athlete that just can't find a way to sneak in an hour-long ride when they worked a 15-hour day, and then to help their kids with online homework, and then they had to prep for the next day at work. Oh my gosh, what a terrible person you must be. No, you're human, and you put the right things in perspective in terms of how to be successful in life. And then the next day you might wake up and you might have a 5-hour workday and it's super easy and your kids don't need any help and you hop back on the train and do a 2.5-hour training day. You have to be flexible, and we can't judge ourselves on a day-to-day basis and probably be so not positive, but we always talk about don't get too high, don't get too low. Like always try to keep like a very even keel. Don't beat yourself up on the bad days, and don't necessarily over celebrate the great days, because for the most part they're all going to average out. Don't forget them, and don't forget the great days that should be celebrated down the road, and also don't lament on the days that are really really bad, and you just kind of carry them on for the rest of the week. But just keep moving on and understand that balance right now is going to be different every day. Your priority is going to be different every single day. And that's okay, because I think the priority that's been taken away from so many of us is that priority to train for this X race, for your Facebook profile pic that is my bib number. Like people, you don't see any bib numbers right now. It's like a weird thing to scroll through Facebook in the end of July and tri-season, and like I can actually see people's faces because it's not like Mike bib number 473 or Robbie bib number 726. You get to see people's faces, but it's indicative of where we are and what people have to focus on. And I think it's also showing how we can not necessarily let distractions get in the way, but how we can sometimes get confused about the path that we're on, and without having that common denominator that is a definite race here in the future, that is a big race or a small race, it's in a good, and I'm saying this in a good positive way, it's allowing us to kind of explore different areas in our life, just not in training or experiences and adventures that might be, finding your own finish line in something that's not just triathlon related, but also with life, spending more time with your family, going out and doing things together, challenging yourself in different ways, reading more books, taking an online course or a class. Like those are good things, and those are okay to be top priorities right now. It doesn't have to always be swim, bike, run, but you can also, like you were talking about, your time by the river and bringing things back. Like, I think we all have those like moments in endurance sports and where these things we do out running or riding just reminds us and kind of takes us back to like, because what you're probably missing isn't necessarily like the race. It's that feeling.
Yeah.
It's that euphoric feeling of being in the zone and being in the groove and feeling so incredibly fit and so totally happy that you just miss it. It's like your favorite song coming on the radio. And maybe it's not even your favorite song. Like if you listen to a lot of music, you have like these songs from these periods in your life that remind you of an event or an experience or a person. And you could be totally on a different way, thinking of something totally different 10 years later down the road, and this song comes on and you're immediately taken back to this time with a specific person or at this event. Or a lot of people have like, certain songs that were like their theme song or their anthem for like some event that they always put on their threshold tunes. And it was like, this is my jam. This reminds me back of like 2016 Ironman Canada. This is my thing. And it takes us back. Doesn't necessarily take us back to the actual physical event, but it takes us back to that feeling, of like what we felt like during that period of time or what we felt around that specific person. And that's what we miss. And then we find ourselves thinking, all right, how can I get that back? Where can I find that? It's like a drug, like and I've had it too. Like, yeah, I had that at camp. I hadn't been swimming and riding. I've been running a ton, and I got in the tri-camp mode. We had 25 athletes come in town in June. We had just the most amazing experience and such an important time, in our lives to connect and have community and have people around us that we love and that we care about and that support us. And I left it feeling so energized. And it wasn't like, did I wake up Sunday morning and walk down to the Anderson Road Beach for our final swim session and think, oh my God, I can't wait to swim, bike, and run. All I want to do is get back on the water and ride my bike and pound the pavement. No, it was, I just want that feeling back. Like, because I think we have that and I think we miss it. And I think that's what a lot of athletes are missing right now is not just the races, but the feeling. And I think that's what we should chase, is that feeling. And whatever brings us that feeling, yeah, I think we should all understand and be okay with the fact that that's good. And that you shouldn't beat yourself up on the fact that, oh, well, right now swim, bike, run isn't bringing me that joy that I love, that I've come to know, that's come to nurture who I am and make my soul feel warm and make me want to be a better person and makes me be a better spouse and a better, parent. It could be just running. It could be just swimming. It could be whatever. And as long as that's pushing you forward in a direction that is positive and has an overall, positive return on your daily investment of training that makes you a better, happier, healthier person, then go that direction. Who cares what it is? Be flexible and do that.
That feeling, that's a really good way to put it. That was one of the things while I was riding out. I was riding my mountain bike on the run course here at Chattanooga. And as I was riding, I was taken straight back to what it felt like to run. And it was mostly like that second loop feeling, and like around that little football field there. I could almost remember exactly how I felt. And it started this conversation in my head about like how exciting race day can be in the sense of, it's sort of like if you're watching it or spectating and your loved ones, your friends, like they're going off on this, difficult journey, right? And then how exciting that feeling is to know that they're coming down and you're going to see them soon. Like how simple that is, but how amplified it is compared to normal, everyday life. And I forgot where I was, but maybe it was at the pool the other day. I was saying goodbye to somebody, and I tried to get in my head is like, say goodbye like you mean it, like, and I think that's what accents during race time is like when you see somebody after they've been out running for maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours and you haven't seen them and they're going through pain and struggle and all that sort of thing. It's like to see them again is, you know what I mean? It's like this, it's like super exciting. and and it's only been 2 hours, but what they've been going through. So I think
It's
that's,
emotional.
yeah, I think that even as we're running and we know we're going to see people, that feeling you get, you're like a half mile away from, you're going to see your crew or your people. And it just drives you. And that interaction is just taken to a new level. And it really is exciting. And that's the interesting part to me about racing. And like you're talking about, get that feeling, and I'm sitting here going, I try, dude. I'm trying to find that feeling as much as I can in normal life, and I just think it's really difficult because you know we're why do we live in the past is the question too that I like to ask, because there are, it's like, man, that song reminds me of the good old days, and there's something to that. Like, that's the important part about really being able to dial into what's happening today, is that this is the good old days. You know what I mean? 10 years from now, be like, remember when we were setting up the hub and everything was simple and like carefree? And then, 10 years from now, we'll be dealing with like all the different level problems. But if we can kind of keep our mind in the space that this is the good old days, then we're going to be a lot better off. And we're going to appreciate things more every day, I think. It's just
You
the
know,
tough one. It's that
it,
Zen thing. It's to be in the moment and really appreciate the moment. And
you,
sometimes moments are easier to appreciate.
and what you said about like looking for your loved ones, knowing where they are, and then I think, if you've never done like a full distance or a 70.3 race or any kind of long race, even if it's like a half marathon or a full marathon, if you've done any of those, like, how important it is to just have that person that you expect to see at like mile 8 or 9 or 10 or 16 or 18 or a mile, the halfway, point of the marathon. Like it gets you to that point. It's that like even though it doesn't physically do anything for you, you're not going to get a brand new set of legs. You're not going to get, become like this totally fresh athlete, but it gets us through that emotional and mental piece of seeing someone that you love, or seeing a close friend, or knowing that your best friend is going to be around the corner, or a group of teammates or athletes or your coach. Like, it can give you that immense emotional boost. And I think, like, here, like, while you were walking through that and give that example, like, that's all I could think about was that is why right now is so hard. It's
Mm.
like we're all stuck at mile 13 of the Ironman marathon, and we have no idea when we're going to see our next group of family and friends, and we have no idea when we're going to get to the finish line. We have no idea what route it's going to be. It could be we might see it tomorrow, we could see it in 5 months, we could see it in a year. And so we're like, we don't have that in our thought, because it can carry you. Not because we've talked about this before in terms of, you can, the running paces you see if you're spectating any kind of event, the last 5 miles, you see a whole lot of walking, a whole lot of jogging, a whole lot of suffering. And then the last mile, all you see is like smile, bliss, run as fast as I can. Even though 3 or 4 miles before that, all they could think was, I can't move anymore. There's no way I'm going to be able to run. And then somehow, some way, they know who they're going to see. They picture seeing their family at the finish line. They picture seeing their kids, their best friend, their teammates, their coach, whatever it is. And it lifts you because you know it's there. You know it's around the corner. You know it's 2 miles away. You know you're going to see it at the turnaround. You just know that it's there. And you stop using mile markers as a means of getting you and motivating you to get to one place to the next. You now start thinking of it in terms of, when am I going to see so and so? When am I going to be around? So when can I catch a glimpse of this? That's what's going to carry me through, because it's that mental and emotional jolt that carries you along, that makes because and I totally believe this, because you see people perform at an incredibly high level when they're so emotionally and mentally happy, and even if they're physically okay. And you also see people who are physically in incredible shape, but are mentally and emotionally just distraught and in turmoil and depressed, perform awfully. But if you have all three of those in sync, then you obviously can perform your best that day. But even if you're struggling physically, if you're at a place where you can be emotionally and mentally lifted, then that kind of euphoric adrenaline rush that is only felt like in your brain and in your heart, it can carry the rest of you. And right now we're stuck. Like, we're heading out, like, you're in terms of racing, in terms of finding that finish line, or finding that day where we get to go out and express these things. Because for the most part, like, the things that we remember, the things that we love, and the things that we end up talking about at the bar, at the restaurant post race, or the next Monday with friends, like, it's rarely ever, man, I was just feeling like I was cruising along, man, at mile 10 or 12, and I felt like I was, running with wings. It's usually something like, dude, I was struggling. Dude, I was hurting at like this, I was hurting here, and then I saw so and so, and then I remember while I was doing this, or I got this second win, and it was like, I hadn't done anything the whole day. Like, it's the suffering that brings most people together. It's the hard work, it's the sacrifice, it's the overcoming of obstacles, it's the rally, it's the seeing someone at mile 18 and finding your legs, and being convinced that you can do this. Because so many times we 100% totally struggle with doing it and thinking it for ourselves. We have to have someone else say, Mike, dude, I know you can do this, man. Like, I know you're having doubts. I know you might not be able to make it, but you can do it. And if it's a trusted person, or a best friend, or a coach, or a teammate, it's amazing the effect that can have of you. And right now, so many athletes are struggling because they don't know when they're going to see that next teammate, that next coach, that next family member, that next friend. And then, to make it worse, they don't even know what mile marker it's going to be, because they have no idea. There is no set finish line. And triathletes, endurance athletes especially, are super type A. They love to have a plan. They love to know. I mean, you see this, like, if there's like a 0.16 mile change difference in the marathon course, you're going to have like 6,000 comments. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we weren't prepared for this. Like, why couldn't you have told us this like 6 months later, or 6 months earlier? Like, you got to tell us these things. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to totally revamp my nutrition plan. I'm going to have to get the map back out. I'm going to have to tell my wife to be here instead of here. They love to be in control. I mean we, because I'm one of them as well. Like, we love to be in control. We love to know what's going on. We love to know what's around the next corner, and how we can prepare for that. And then we have to have things, all of our ducks in a row, and all things prepared. And now it's like, we don't know what's around the next corner. And not only that, is we don't know how long that stretch of road is going to be. Like, if for me, it's like being in Ironman Louisville back in August, when it was an August race, because you know how that last like long stretch goes on forever. It's just in this
Yeah, and
long
it
straight
looks
line.
basically the
It
same.
is. It looks the same, and you're like, when is this going to end? There's no turning. There's nothing, and then it's like, it's just never ending. It's just like it keeps going, and that's where we are right now. It's like, when is this going to end? Because not only do I need to know when it's going to end, I need to know when I can turn back around and head back towards the finish line, or just head back, because out there it's like so desolate. There's no place for spectators. It's like because what it is we're getting farther and farther and farther and farther away from seeing our friends and our family and in the finish line, and that is what we feel so robbed of. I don't necessarily think it's the medals and the accomplishment. I think it's that we feel like we're being robbed of that experience and that thought and that movement and that emotional and kind of mental celebration that is the different points of the course and of our lives where we have the support, we have this love that carries us through. And right now we're having to for the most part just rely on ourselves.
I know, flying solo, man. It's not an easy journey. But you wonder too if it's gonna make us stronger in the long run or tougher, or to be able to get through some of those isolated moments out there on the course. I wonder if this kind of situation is going to help in that way. But yeah, I mean, I miss it, man. I do. I miss that. It's unbelievable how just being around people can give you energy, and I think that's a science thing too, since we talk about science a lot. Like, but there's energy in the room, and there's something about, you could be laying around, and if you walked into my condo and said, hey man, get up and let's do it, like I could feel zero energy and ready to go until you got in there, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, all right, I can do it now. And just those simple things in life, and then how much difference that makes out on a course, or even if you're training with somebody else. And those are those little things that we have to deal with, because I don't know if I mean, like, there's a weird part of me that is like, I'd rather just do this by myself and then have a bunch of people around. But there's no question, when there is a bunch of people, it's like crossing a threshold or something. And once you get into that mix, or once you show up somewhere, it's not, it's this stuff going around in your head that kind of confuses you. It's really difficult to sort out things on your own too. But like, if you walked in and said, dude, you can do this, or you saw me on the course, you can make it. We kind of joke around with like, you got this or whatever, but there is something to it. And we're just flying solo so hard right now, and without, like you said, I mean, like, it's weird to think that in a way we're just kind of running, we're living into the Wild West or something. It's like we don't know what's out there, and it's kind of difficult to get your head wrapped around this idea that I have a target or don't have a target, and I'm just kind of going on faith right now. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, just keep going ahead, because when it does come back, and next year, and we have no guarantees of that, obviously, but I mean, come on, it's got to come back. And now it looks like it may be coming back, maybe a little bit better, at least the Ironman portion of things.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think it is. I definitely want to make sure I touch on that here towards the end of the podcast in terms of
Yeah,
Ironman's
it's a little
purchase
too early. Damn.
acquisition. Hey, dude, you're losing it, man. Your TV days are over, man. That was that was a
My
rookie
timing
mistake,
is
man.
just
That was your timing's way off.
super rookie.
No, I loved what you said though about like it's funny, like we loved, I mean, me, like I love to train alone. Like that's what I do. That's my life. I like to train alone. I like to have my own schedule, I like to be on time. And then every time like we do one of our camp, we had like a camp in June. I know we talked about that before on their podcast, but we had 25 athletes come in town from all over the country. And like one of the number one things people always say, and we talk about it in our post camp debrief podcast and discuss it, I'm sure at length, and you've all heard it before, is that people always say, I never would have done this on my own. Never. I never would have attempted this. I never would have tried to do back-to-back days of this. I never would have chosen this route. I never think I would be able to do this. I think one of the hardest things right now that we're understanding about ourselves, and I think I know myself, I'm understanding this about me, is that while we crave and we love the solidarity and the solitude that is endurance training and the opportunity that provides, we also crave and want that connection with a person, with a teammate, with a coach, with a training partner, to drive us and to hold us accountable. And at the same time, that also scares us because
Yeah.
what usually happens is that it propels us to a different direction, or a different level of effort or execution or taking on something we would normally take on, and that scares us Because, and I think it scares us in a couple ways. It scares us in like reminding us and showing us, man, like, am I just totally settling? Like, am I just okay being fine? Am I okay and just being content with training alone? Am I really getting the best out of myself? But then at the same time, we want this accountability, we want the support from people while it drags us through with, like, whether it's physically or with just the emotional energy and support that we can get from a solid group of people, is that we need that too. We need that to push ourselves. And right now that's being taken away from so many people. And so we're left to kind of question our own strength. And are we really that secure? Are we really that motivated? Are we really that committed to doing X, Y, and Z just myself? Am I really, because we aren't having these bits of experiences that surround ourselves with other people, because people can't travel, people can't do these things, people have different limitations, and it's just different for everyone. So I think we're also like, I love the train alone, I love the train alone. And now people are like, dude, I want to, like, go see people. Like, I want to see people's faces. I want to be around people. I just want to feel that energy and have them drive me and push me in different directions and challenge me, even though I might not like it in the moment. I love it afterwards. And then what it does is just continues to open doors of, all right, well, if that can challenge me, the chances are that's probably not even really like my Everest, my peak. That's probably more around the next corner that I can get, that I can do. And can I do that alone? Or do I need other people? Do I need that support? Do I need that community? Do I need that training partner? Do I need that team? Do I need that coach? Like, how am I going to continue just becoming my best self? Because the athletes right now that are being the most successful and that aren't missing training, and they're more dialed in than ever, and sometimes I have to have this conversation with them, is like, what's the next objective? And I think athletes do this, is that they get caught up in race definitions of athlete expression. And what I mean by that is that the number one goal for you as a person who is in any kind of endurance sport, if you're committed and you're consistent, is to just find out, how good can you really get? I don't mean good as in like how many championships can you win. I just mean Robbie Bruce was given this body, this amount of time in this life. How close, not how good, how close can I get to that actual potential? Will I ever get there? Who knows? Most people don't. I probably like 99.9% of people never reach their full potential in probably anything in life. But how close can we get? Yes, the races are fun. Yes, the races are great. They provide us opportunities to express our fitness and then go back and have those experiences like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, with chasing people around the next corner and looking forward to seeing your friends and your family, getting that jolt from that special someone that you just can't wait to see, and having the hugs at the finish line or running down the red carpet. Like, yeah, those are awesome, and those are irreplaceable in terms of the experiences and the things that we can get from the sport, and how they can carry us through really difficult times in our life and also help us celebrate the greatness. But when it comes down to like just the bare bones of it, is that hopefully you just want to figure out how great you can be. Like, you, not you compared to Jim and Tom and Sally and Sue, but you. What is the best Mike Tarrolly version of yourself that you have? Not 10 years ago, not 10 years from now, but right now. And are you really getting the best out of it? Or are you just wasting time and finding excuses? Like, what's in your pocket? Are you just pulling excuses out right and left? Or are you looking for ways to just get better? Because races are happening. Races are going to continue to happen, whether they're big, small, medium, whatever. They're going to happen. And then at some point, you're going to be able to get back to that and cross that finish line you've always wanted to finish. And it's going to seem even more important. And you're going to get emotional because it's been a year in the making, 2 years in the making, 3 years in the making, whatever it is. But when you toe that line, like, the event is just a day. That's it.
Yeah.
It's one day. It could be 4 hours or it could be 14 hours. It's just a day. It's who you're becoming and who you're trying to make, and the characteristics and the behaviors that you're trying to cultivate. Like, those are the things that stick with you for years. Not just a day, but for years. And that's what we should be focusing on right now. Is that bird's eye view of progression and being a part of a process, and just understanding that what I'm doing today might not seem like a lot. And that's racing. What I'm doing today, because racing is one day, it might seem like a lot today, but in the scheme of things, It's very, very, very minimal. It has little to nothing. When you look over the span of 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, how great can you become? How close can you get to finding that edge? I mean, many people on this podcast that are listening right now have already blown past these times, these paces, these efforts, these distances that they, when they got in the sport, that they thought, I just can't imagine. I'd never in a million, never a million years thought I would ever run this pace. Never in a million years did I think I'd be able to make it up this hill. Never in a million years did I think I'd be able to finish this race. And that's just with barely, barely scratching the surface. Barely scratching the surface. Think about how much more you can do, how much more you can become, how much more you can accomplish if you just keep working. In these times in our lives that are challenging and where obstacles are thrown at us like every 5 seconds, like, it just provides us with more opportunity to grow and to get stronger and to find out because that's like so many people walk around this world being fine and being content and being okay and never being challenged because it's scary, and that person will never become who they're meant to become. Like I speak that from like my heart because I know this. Like I've gone through some incredibly horrific experiences in my life and totally bad periods of my life that I was totally at fault for. But when I look at it and I look back at the person I was before that, before I got sober, and the person I am now, even if I had never had those things happen, I had never picked up a drink, I would have lived a life of mediocrity, of being fine, of being okay, of meeting other people's expectations and wishes that they had for my life. And now I can't, I'm not even living a dream. I'm like living something that I never could have even dreamed because I didn't think it was possible. Not that I'm like this massive success story, or I have this, massive empire and wonderful life, but this life that I have now it isn't even like I don't even know what it is because I wouldn't have never have dreamt it because I never knew I never would have thought it would have been possible because I was so okay and so almost scared and content into being fine, into just treading water, that when you're forced to swim because you're almost drowning in life, you don't have any idea how far you can go. Like you could drop a person in the middle of the ocean who hasn't swam a day in their life, and if their life depends on it, we'd all be stunned, how far they can go. Like you see these bouts of strength with, two or three individuals who could pick up a car because someone's trapped underneath with a huge adrenaline rush that on a normal day with no adrenaline and no emergency, they'd be like, we can't even lift the back tire. But these feats of strength and these feats of mental and emotional, um, triumph that we all have inside of us that we just totally drown out or succumb to the pressure or the thought of, okay, well, what if I do this? Because it's scary and it's hard and life is difficult. But there are a million things out there that we can accomplish just with ourselves that we never thought we could do if we just continue to go out and try.
You
Thank you
said a
for coming to
couple.
my TED Talk.
Thank you, and I think Ironman's going to be better this year because of no, I'm not. I've got something to say. You said a couple things. One of the things you said was, "Are we wasting our time and finding excuses?" And to me, personally, and from what I've been seeing of a lot of other people, that's to me the danger of this whole COVID thing is that it seems like it could be an excuse. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of unknown. It's like, well, things aren't really the same, and everybody's kind of in a chill pattern, and we're not sure what's going to happen. I can put it off for another day. It's sort of like, you know, we were talking about at one point, I think, like if you had a deadline for an exam and it just got put off another 6 months, you're like, all right, I can put that book away for a while. And it's so easy to kind of just do that. And you kind of drop my name in there as Mike Tarrolly reaching his potential, kind of as an example. But it made me think. It's sort of like the answer is probably no, because um, it just is. I'm that guy, right? That would do something like that. Well, I'll crank it up when I need to, kind of thing. But the reality is, uh, when I know when I'm at my best, like I've cited the days when I used to play this competitive softball, and I know that always sounds like a little joke, but it was pretty high level stuff. And I remember one off season when I would just go out to this building and just throw wall balls back, and I work on my backhand or work on just different things for hours, and I was into it, and there was no like way to gauge it or objectify what I was doing exactly. I just knew that I was getting better by doing these sort of things. And I came back the next season and I was just like a totally different shortstop. And those are the things that I want to do now. And I think I've kind of found that with that pool running stuff, and I'm just doing little things to get back. And I'm finding excitement because it feels like I said, you can't really put a gauge on like how much you're improving or if you're getting to be a better triathlete or whatever the case may be. But I do feel like it's a direction that's making me better. And I can't quantify it yet or do any of that sort of thing, but I'm excited about it. And that's important, I think, is to find those little things that you know are making you better, but maybe aren't exactly the things that, like you're not going to go out and be able to time them on a watch or any of that sort of thing or judge them by power or anything like that. But figure out things that are going to make you better and find that excitement in them. And because, and again, it's sort of like why I always advocate writing about your workouts. It might seem like the boringest thing in your life, but if you can kind of like write it down and remember it, because it's so hard to remember, right? Like I was talking to, last night we had a listener in the podcast, Adam. He's a chiropractor. He offered his help with my plantar fasciitis, for example, and he actually brought that up. He said, "Man, if you have like a day, you write down like your injury report, like how it felt today, or 2 hours of pain free, and then it got worse or whatever, because you forget that stuff." And it's important to remember, like or to be able to like sort of gauge your improvement in little areas besides stuff that can be directly timed with a watch or anything like that. So, um, yeah, I think it's real easy to kind of kick back right now and sort of be like, well, I'll just kind of go through the motions until they figure something out. But you know how that goes, man. It's sort of like, oh, they put the swim back or whatever, 20 minutes. I'll just chill. Instead of like taking advantage of that time to get to get your mind straight and be ready to go even more, you kind of get caught off guard again. It's sort of like you're ready to, it's like getting in the water of an Ironman not mentally prepared. And if you make that commitment to do it in the first place, it's like, well, I'll just jack it up when I get there. But if you can slowly ramp that up and just kind of keep it under control and be ready when that gun goes off in a better place. And I think that's sort of a microcosm of what's going on right now. It's like, okay, just keep getting a little bit better every day and working on things that may be a struggle for you.
It's
Usually.
right now is yeah, no, I love what you said there. I mean, like right now, like a lot of people say in life, like you're don't get caught standing in a doorway. You're not going anywhere and you're not coming from anywhere. You're just standing in the doorway. You just really don't know what you're doing. And a lot of athletes right now think that they're stuck right there, that they're just not going anywhere. There's no races. They're just going to hold pat. There is no such thing as holding pat. You are either, and this is good with all things in life, you are either getting worse or getting better. And you're never going to get better every day. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. You're never going to have, you're never going to quote, hashtag beat yesterday every single day. It's not going to happen because life's going to, wake up and slap you in the face, be like, you thought you were in control, but guess what? Life is in control. It ain't happening today. But you have to make a choice. Do I want to consciously wake up every day with the intent to get better? Or am I going to consciously wake up and be totally fine not doing anything? Or be totally fine being the person that I am right now? And that might be okay. But over time, what that happens is you find comfort in being the Robbie Bruce that you've become, that you've started to like and love, or the Mike Tarrolly that can do this and do that. But what you're doing is you're just nurturing the person that you are currently, being okay with it. And nothing necessarily wrong with that. But what you're also not doing is trying to continue to become the better version that you thought you might be 2 years from now. Because, the person you are now might be incredibly different than the person you were just a year ago or 5 years ago. But if you rewinded it back, for most of us to be like, hey, the person I was 2 or 3 years ago wasn't that bad either, but you could have sat there and been like, you know what, I'm fine getting better. I don't really have anything to prove. I'm just going to sit here. But then what happens over time is that those behaviors, those habits, they erode over time. You become complacent. You become content. The first thing that you're going to jump towards is the excuse of complacency, not the push to hold yourself accountable or to stay motivated or to be committed and what you're going to figure out on that journey. Like we just forget that. Like you can't right now. And so many athletes I think are struggling with this is you can't take a pause in your journey. You just can't. I mean, you if you want to, sure, go for it. But if you really want to continue to get better and you really want to become the best version of yourself, not just triathlete, but person, athlete, spouse, parent, friend, family member, whatever, you can't just put that on pause. You have to keep working. You can't just let the difficulties and the obstacles that are being thrown at us every day and the uncertainty and the need to be flexible, like that's not an excuse to just stand down. Like, while everyone else is retreating, you need to advance. Like that is how you should be thinking about right now, because that's how you get ahead. I'm not talking about getting ahead of Susie down the street. I'm talking about getting ahead of yourself, getting ahead of that version from you, because we all have that devil on our shoulder that says, you don't need to do this today. You don't need to do that. You'll be fine. No one else is doing anything. You're not racing. What's the big deal? And while some of those days are totally fine, it's not the devil talking. It's actually, the angel on your shoulder telling yourself to give yourself a break. Like you need that. You need to be able to push through that and ask yourself and question yourself, like, what is it that I'm trying to do here? What do I really want to be a year from now? And is it what I'm doing today going to make me into that person, or is it more likely to send me back to that person that I was a year ago?
Good point, man. I like it.
Now do you want to do your thing?
Yeah, and it's been a very difficult season, of course, but if we can stay optimistic, I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic now as we move forward, at least from the Ironman perspective. Don't you think so?
No, yeah. There's well done, man. Well done. You're probably gonna get a call from Bob Mueller at Channel 2 when you come back to work from them. Um,
Oh,
what you're what
doubtful.
no what you're referring to is, and we've discussed this and brought it up the last few months, and I get it. Like there is a whole lot to be unhappy about in terms of how some race management companies are doing things and different companies and businesses, but and a lot of that's been thrown at Ironman's way because they're the big kid on the block, and they've obviously had so many of their races get canceled, and then they're postponing them, and then they're not, people want refunds, they don't like the transfer options, and while a lot of that may be true, and they may be going about it a wrong way, they've also been stuck in like the worst case scenario for a business in that they, I think it was like February or March, they Wanda Group, who was the group that owned the Ironman Group in WTC, like they sold it. They agreed, in principle, to buy out or purchase from a business called Advanced Publications, and then all this happened. And so they agree upon a price point that which this company is going to be purchased at, and then what they've been basically trying to do until the sale has been final is do what most companies would do, right or wrong, is not diminish the value of what it's going to be. Like, think of it this way, and again, I'm not saying like this isn't a pro Ironman or a con Ironman conversation. It's just a life business conversation. I think it's healthy to have, is that if someone comes to buy a car from you and they agree to purchase it for $6,000, right? But they can't come pick it up for 3.5 or 4 months. And then over that period of time, you're struggling and you'd be like, well, I think I'm going to sell the tires. I can't really sell the tires. I maybe need to get rid of this. And then the guy comes to buy it in 3.5 months and it's missing, 3 hubcaps, 2 side view mirrors, and then the cloth's been ripped off the seat. But okay, still give me $5,000 for that. No, that's not how it works. You want to recoup and retain as much value, so when the deal gets finalized, you can still get the price that get the money that person originally agreed to give you. And that's what's been going on with like keeping races open and letting people register. Not that they've been trying to be sly about it, I don't think, but in terms of like not knowing, you just don't know. And finally, I think on Monday, that deal finally went through. So for all the people who like love to hate on Chinese companies, they in Wanda Sports Group, not that they've been incredible the last few years, but that sale finally went through with Advanced Publications. They'll be taking over, and I think that was one of their first orders of business, was to immediately cancel Kona in February and 70.3 Worlds, and and kind of go ahead and shut the door on those and try to start making better decisions going forward. One of the highlights, though, that I think that everyone needs to be aware of is that, so before Wanda Group, way back in the day when triathlon and especially Ironman was really booming and successful, was owned by Providence Equity Group, and a man within that was called, I believe it was Jesse Dubé. He is now actually another part owner of this, and coming in, he's going to start making decisions along with Andrew Messick. Even though Messick did resign from his director position at Wanda Sports, he'll still remain the CEO of the quote unquote Ironman Group. To be honest, I wouldn't be totally shocked if Messick doesn't come back within the next year, but the addition of Jesse Dubé, I think, is a really, really good thing. He's back on the Ironman board of directors. He has a lot of sway. He's been doing this for a very, very long time, and he was involved back when Ironman seemed like it was a very, very, very athlete-centric organization, where they were all about doing what's best for the athlete. And so I think you're going to see a huge shift. I'm not predicting all people are going to be happy, because triathletes are not ever always happy, but I think that you are going to see, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months, better communication, better options, now that there's basically only one company in charge, not a company who's basically selling it and trying to get rid of it, and then a company who's trying to buy it for a lesser price, and one's trying to maintain value, and you're all caught in kind of no man's land. At the same time, you're dealing with a global pandemic that's causing travel restrictions and race cancellations and postponements. Like, it's been the perfect storm in terms of bad PR and to be honest, a lot of bad decision making too, in terms of, but everyone's trying to do their best, I think, a lot of ways. So hopefully you'll see a different side of Ironman in the athlete relationship department. Obviously, I can't promise that, I don't work for them, but I do think there's reason for optimism on the horizon, as with any new acquisition, most of the time something changes. And so be on the lookout for that, and I hope that is exactly what happens.
I'm predicting all better.
You are?
Yeah, better communication, emails like crazy to let people know what's going on, cheaper gear, more gear, cheaper gear, better finish lines, more Mike Riley.
Ooh,
no, I don't. I'm just trying to stay optimistic. I think it's probably good. A little change of pace, I don't know, man. They better be ready, because people are going to be coming back in record numbers next year. Maybe.
I'm predicting that as well. Yep.
Are you? Okay, good. I mean,
yep. I actually think,
still sulking over Muncie's prediction.
Listen, man. Sulking. Here's the deal. If those races would have happened 2 weeks earlier, they would have happened. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Yeah,
right.
Just saying. Right. Anyway, hey, we hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We started off strong with the cannonball. We ended with our a daily scoop of news.
With the jackknife.
Yeah, the jackknife. But yeah, we do appreciate you tuning in. We did mention camps in this podcast. If you want to check out the camps that we do have remaining this year and the next year, you can go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and click on the tab camps. We have a trail running camp coming in October that only has 5 or 6 spots left. We have a camp next June, our technical camp here in Chattanooga. It only has 1 spot left. And then our camp, I'll probably post something in the closed, and they're in the Crushing Iron group later this week. Then our regular, incredibly popular triathlon camp in Nashville, that's in late June. That's already halfway full for next June. So as many of you have already had your race calendars planned for next year because of the cancellations and deferments, we'll get some more information on that, but you can check that out on our website. It also has more info on that website as well about our camps, community, and coaching. If you need anything, have any questions, or just want to chat, you can always reach out to Mike at crushingiron@gmail.com, or if you have any questions for me specifically, you can always reach out to me at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Hang on the line a second here. It's been a pleasure. I will see you soon, man.
All right, dude. See you, man.